Yes, people, what's happening? And welcome back to GavGoesIn. So yeah, listen, we're going to carry on our great to the game. You know, big up to everyone that's been interacting with that. And big up to everyone that's been smashing the likes and giving me your opinions on, players that I've done. I think I've done 8 players now, I believe. I think there's a couple coming out today. And again, we're going to carry it on. And yeah, I'm enjoying doing this, man. Some of the players that, I've genuinely forgot about, that I've had to add to my list. But yeah, it's good doing this, man. But we're going to move on anyway. And we're going to talk about a striker for me. I would liken this striker to, I would say, a modern day version of Alan. Well, I say modern day version. For me, he was better, in my opinion. But he was quite comparable to, I would say, an Alan Shearer. Even though I do think he was better than Alan Shearer. I remember when watching back in the day, Goal Lazio, Italian football, Serie A was the place to be, man. Place to watch football. There was so much talent and great ballers in that league. And it was headed by, for me, one of the best strikers in Europe. One of the best strikers in that league. And that's none other than Argentinian striker Gabriel Batistuta. And Batistuta, for me, was one of the strikers that I used to watch from young. The guy was just an absolute... He was an animal, like, in terms of, like, clinical, strong, aggressive. His movement was ridiculous. Not someone that was blessed with massive pace. But again, in that era of football, it wasn't about pace, really. It was just about, leadership. It was about just pure quality, you know what I mean? And Batistuta, man, heading, shooting off both feet, his technique, his touch, he had everything, and, his partnership with Rui Costa, another player that, will be in this great to the game that I'm going to do. Like, Batistuta, man, was what a player he was. As I said, one of the best strikers of his generation of Europe. And I think he's a player that often gets slept on as well, in my opinion. I think he's someone that not too many people discuss, especially in English football. When people talk about Alan Shearer, and let's not forget, Alan Shearer had a great career at Blackburn and Newcastle, winning a Premier League title. And again, he's a record goal scorer for England. But when it comes to, a pure striker, in terms of, his finishing, his touch technique, as I said, for me, Gabriel Batistuta, was comparable to an Alan Shearer in terms of the physicality and the way they played. But for me, yeah, he had that extra for me, Gabriel Batistuta. So yeah, man, what a striker! And again, not even just for Fiorentina and Roma, but also for the Argentinian national team as well. Their squad was stacked of talent in the attacking areas. There's a few players that I'm going to touch on as well, which another player that just come to mind as well, which I'm going to make sure I add into the list after I finish. Hopefully I don't forget, but yeah, man, him in that Argentinian team, yeah, he was a problem, man, and what a striker. So we're gonna go through his numbers, and then we're gonna go through his team honors and his individual honors as well. So for me, where he made his name was at Fiorentina. So 269 appearances, 168 goals, 21 assists. Then after that, I think he was at Roma. There was also a stint there with Inter Milan. Inter Milan, 12 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. Roma, 63 appearances, 30 goals, 7 assists. And then Al Arabi, I think, is when he was starting to hang up his boots. 21 appearances, 25 goals. And then River Plate and Boca Juniors, 55 appearances, 17 goals. And I think that was over 2 stints for for either team. And I think that might have been either when he was hanging up his boots or before he come to European football. And obviously Argentina, a phenomenal record of 56 goals in 78 appearances, becoming Argentina's highest ever goal scorer. And then obviously Messi surpassing that, which we all know who Messi is, you know. And again, the accolades that Batistuta has, he's the second highest goal scorer in the World Cup after Messi. So that's the kind of player he was, man. Clinical, you know, goals for glory. And again, he isn't someone that scored an obscene amount of goals, you know, because the era there was different. You think of the kind of defenders that were there back in that day. You know, there were no joke defenders, man, back then. So, you know, having a striker like that, having to apply his trade against some serious defenders, you know, can't be underestimated. And this is why I say, when you're looking at players right now that are getting obscene numbers, you know, all you have to look at is the era of football they're in, because there's no defenders in this era right now that can be really comparable to the defenders of the past. That's just the truth, you know. And I'm not saying that a lot of these defenders aren't good, but when it comes to a lot of defenders back in the day, you know, these guys had something different. And again, there's a lot of defenders that I'm going to go through in this Greats of the Game. So, yeah, it's mad. Team honours, 2 Copa Americas for Argentina, 1 Serie A, 1 Serie B. I think that was for Fiorentina, I believe. Roma might be in there, I'm not too sure. 1 Coppa Italia, 2 Super Coppa Italianas, and 1 Confederations Cup for Argentina. Then individual, so Serie A top goal scorer for a season he got. Argentine Player of the Year, Serie A Footballer of the Year. Serie A Foreign Player of the Year. And he's the only player ever to score 2 hat-tricks in different World Cups. Again, that's something that I didn't realise, you know, because you kind of take that for granted. But he's the only player to score hat-tricks in 2 different World Cups, which is crazy because, you know, you would have thought that there's been quite a few hat-tricks in World Cups, but the only player ever to score 2 hat-tricks in different World Cups. Will that be broken? I don't really know. I can't really say. But that's the kind of things that Batistuta was doing. And again, nicknamed Batigol. That was his nickname in Fiorentina, you know. And as I said, one of the true greats of the game, you know. And I'd advise people to, you know, watch some clips of Batistuta. And if you just see some of the goals that this guy used to score, you will realise that, you know, and I keep saying this era of football that we're in now, you know, is at an all-time low, because the kind of strikers that we were seeing back then, again, Batistuta never won World Player of the Year, never won it, because the kind of players he was competing against, you know, was high. And again, could you imagine having a Batistuta in this era of football, you know, with some of the players that are being linked for Ballon d'Ors, etc.? You know, he'll be dominating it. And this is what I'm trying to say to people, that this era of football is just not the same as what it was before, you know. Don't get me wrong, there are some good players in this era, but nothing compared to what I've seen previously, you know. And this is why I like to do these things called the Greats of the Game. So, yeah, man, it is what it is. But, guys, big up yourselves. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you share the channel. Make sure you sub to the channel. And let me know in the comments, guys, what you think about Gabriel Batistuta. Did you guys see his career? Did you see how good he was? You know, how would he compare in the era right now to Erling Haaland, you know, in comparison to, you know, the ability of the player? Because there's no doubt that Erling Haaland scores more goals, but if you've ever seen Gabriel Batistuta, you know, there's no debate whether who's a better player between Erling Haaland or Gabriel Batistuta. So yeah, let me know what you think. Put your comments in. Give me any suggestions that you'd like me to speak about on any other players. And as I say, I've got a list that I'm working through. But if there's any other players you'd like me to speak about, then feel free to let me know. But smash the likes, sub to the channel, share the channel. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in a bit. Take it easy.